welcome, or should we say welcome?
That sounds Norwegian.
To the Grow People podcast. See what I did there?
Yeah. David, I didn't know what you were doing there.
Yes. Yeah. David Stein, along with Jason Gertis, lead pastor of Revolution Church. The purpose of the Grow People podcast is to help
grow people.
Excellent. The podcast is part of our discipleship here at Revolution Church. Over the last few episodes, if you have joined us, we have introduced you to some of Pastor Jason's friends, Larry Osborne, Lance Witt. I know Pastor Jason gets very excited for us to get to know his friends. They're all having a big influence on his life, and we're direct recipients of the friendships that these men have with Jason. Today, we're excited to talk more about our international church planting efforts, and you've heard us talk a lot about the Exponential Network that we've been involved with for years. Dave Ferguson, who wrote the Bless book that y'all got at Abide, Men's and Women's Nights, he leads Exponential globally. Well, part of that is Exponential Europe. So here today is president of Exponential Europe. He defines the mission of his life in two ways: side by side and multiplication. He's a husband, he's a dad, 2 girls, 2 boys, a church planter, an entrepreneur. Please welcome to the GPP, which is the Grow People podcast, from Norway, Oyvind Oglen.
Thank you very much. It's very good to be here, Jason. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
How did I do on the velkommen?
I think you're doing well.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome. Okay, so there's no V?
No.
Welcome.
Okay, there's
welcome.
There's a V.
All right.
How'd you guys meet? You guys have been friends for a while. How'd you guys meet?
Well, actually, it's still fairly new. You say a while, like we haven't been friends for years, but I feel like we've been friends for years.
You've been talking about Oyvind for a long time.
Yes, yeah. I got the opportunity to go to Exponential Europe. We had a lot of mutual friends.
Mm-hmm.
Slavik, who's been on here, who's in Ukraine. Dave Ferguson, as you mentioned. So we've been involved with Exponential for years. I knew who Oyvind was, knew of him. And last year when I got the chance to go to Ukraine, the Exponential Europe conference was right after that. So I went there with Slavik, and Dave and Slavik both were like, I got to introduce you to my friend Oyvind. So we met hanging out in Berlin and spent some time there, and again, just became fast friends. And he's actually been to this year's second time in Atlanta to be with us.
Yes.
So right after that, and he's a part now. Well, he just spoke at our Engaged Churches Network gathering today. So it feels like we've been friends for years, but it's even been quite a year.
There is a killer spirit.
Yes.
I really feel the same.
Yes.
Well, Oyvind, Jason gets very excited when his friends come to town, and he wants us all to meet them, and he was very excited that you were here. Now, most of us don't know anything about Norway. Full disclosure, I had to look at a map to see where it was. And so I want to give people a little description of if you're looking at the UK, and the UK is like the center of a watch dial. Norway would be about 2:00.
Yes, something like that.
2:00. The Norwegian Sea and the North Sea.
Yep.
Okay, bordering that.
So it's north of England.
Yes.
Yeah,
northeast of England. We do know that Norway is very strong in the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, they just racked up points.
Yeah. So we're going to start out with some Norwegian Olympic trivia.
You know, we had a Norwegian last week winning the PGA in golf also.
Yes.
So,
and
we will be here in the World Championship of Soccer when it's coming in next month.
It's a big year for Norway.
It's a big year.
Yeah. So in all of the Winter Olympics, what country has the most medals ever?
In all of Winter
Olympics. Germany, the United States, or Norway?
Well, I probably will say United States. It's wrong to say something else here.
I'll say Norway.
It's Norway.
It's Norway. Yeah.
It's Norway. 447 total medals, 363 for the U.S. and 312 for Germany. But the most medals ever in a Winter Games was this year.
Yes, it was
in Italy.
And the one who took the 6 medals.
One person.
So, and we have 5 million people. It's amazing that there can come so much strong athletes from 5 million people. It's like half the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Atlanta's 8 million people
so it's a little bit
in
more.
like a couple thousand square miles of the metro area, and Norway is 5.5 million in 150,000 square miles.
Wow.
So, big country,
Very long country.
Yes.
You're tall. How would you say that? Very,
very long. From my city that is in the south of Norway up to the north of Norway, where we have the border to Russia, is the same distance from my city to Rome in Italy.
Wow.
So you can fly the whole of Europe, and then you can fly up north.
Wow. Now, do you live where the sun shines all day?
No, I live in the south of Norway. That's not where the sun shines all day. But the north of the polar circle, you have sun 3 months, 24 hours.
Wow.
In the summer.
Yeah. So what's the climate right now there?
Now in Norway, in my city, it's more like 12, 15 degree.
Yeah, we don't know
Celsius.
what that means.
Oh, Celsius. Oh, come on. Celsius. Come on. Fahrenheit.
What would it be?
You have to change that.
Yeah.
It's more like...
Because you like double it. It's like 50s.
50 to 55 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Y'all use the metric system over there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the 9mm handgun and the 2-liter bottle of Pepsi. That's it.
That's it.
That's all. That's all we do with the metric.
Yeah.
So what is your story? When did Jesus change your life to take you on this path of pastor and church planter and movement leader?
That's his story. It's and I have the privilege to follow. So I was kind of come to faith in a local church that was planted 200 meters from my home when I was really 16 years old. I have good parents. My father wasn't a Christian. My mother went to this, what you call the state church of Norway. But so I have a very good, I would say, value-driven raising up from Christian values, but not really knowing Jesus. But when I was 16 years old, I radical met Jesus in a local church.
Wow.
Become the pastor in that church when I was 23 and was sent out to plant another church when I was 24, 25 years old with my newly married, with my wife.
Wow, that's incredible. So you get saved in that church, and a couple years later, like, hey, you're the guy.
So they saw something.
Yeah.
But they probably sent me out because I was too irritating to be in the mother church. So they sent me out to do something new.
Now is that the Den Evangelisk Lutherske Frikirke? I studied for this podcast.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You do well. So it's called the Evangelical Lutheran Free Church. So it's in Norway you have the Protestant like state church. That's something very odd, but it's still 70% of the Norwegian population belongs to a kind of state church. But you have also a Lutheran Free Church that is, I will say, evangelical, very strong evangelical, healthy, charismatic, open spirit led, and free. Yeah. And that's who I am.
So that would be the Frikirken.
Yeah, Frikirken.
Yeah, that's how you
good.
pronounce it.
Frikirken.
It's good.
And that's not the part of the state church. It's
it's not that. It's a Presbyterian church.
Yes.
So it's it's our own denomination. And
So we obviously have ties to Scotland. We've been going over to Scotland for the last couple of years. We know that that's considered an unreached people group now, with less than 2% Christian. What is the composition of Norway when it comes to Christ?
So Norway has like deep revival roots. So we have been decreasing for many years, but in the last 20 years there's have been a shift. So I will say we are now increasing. Around 5% of the population is more or less active in a church. More statistically would say they believe in Jesus or believe in God. And there is happening something now, especially among a young generation. So when I talk with youth leaders and leaders in all kind of youth organization, they will say they've seen more young people come to faith the last 2 years than the last 20 years.
Wow.
So something is boiling, something is happening.
Yeah, you said that this morning at our network meeting, our Engage network meeting, and I texted Pastor Jason something is happening because he had been using that phrase since last year at our giver dinners. That's when you started. Yeah. That something is happening, not just here at Revolution Church and not just at our partner churches in the greater Atlanta area, but every pastor that you talk to. And then you said that this morning. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I think there's. Someone asked, "Are there a revival going on?" I will say no, but there is a huge mission opportunity, in the sense that I think we have been declining for many years in Europe. The church, there has been a strong secularization of kind of the society.
Mm-hmm.
But the hope that the secular hope that said everything will go to the better, it's a little bit crushed because of COVID that happened. 9 million refugees in the Ukraine war coming into Europe, and some financial issues in Europe. So there is a whole generation that has lost the hope in the secular hope, and then there is an openness. So what's happening then? So I think there is the question. So what now? That is kind of more and more tangible, and I think that's make a huge mission opportunity if the church is ready. So I will say you can go on the street now, and if you ask people, "Can I pray for you?" 8 out of 10 will say yes.
Wow.
And there's a natural, more openness than we have seen for a long time.
Now, would you say it's different from here in the South of the United States, where everybody says they're a Christian? Are these people that are actually pursuing Christ and they're welcoming the prayer?
Yes, I will say they are welcoming. We are in a situation many places where we have the 3rd and 4th generation that have never seen a Bible, they have never heard a Christian story. It's secularized. They don't know what church is. They don't know who Jesus is. So when you come and tell the story of Jesus, it's totally fresh. Yeah. They have no framework to put it in. It's totally fresh. So that's why it's a new openness.
So at 23, you become a pastor. At what point did you feel this call to not just pastor this local church, but also plant more churches and begin that process of multiplication?
It's a good question. 25 years we went out, planted a church. When I was 30 years, the church was planted, established, and then my elder came to me and he said, "Oyvind, that's my name. I'm not sure you should be the pastor in this church. I think we need another one." And when you have the elders that you trust come to say that, you need to ask, so why? And then they say, "You never give us peace." And then I understood, maybe I'm not a typical pastor. Maybe I'm more entrepreneurial starting. So that's moved me to going out from the one church and start another church. And then we started a Bible school in the city, and we start others. And parallel to this, someone, when I was very young, saw some potential. So they sent me to what they call the second European church planting conference back a long time back. I was 23 years old. And I connected in 95 to a national network for church planting. So we started a national network for church planting parallel when we started the church. And I was a part of that back in 95. So I was drawn into church planting in the midst of the 20. I just continued that journey up to now.
I'd like to ask you the same question. You became a pastor at a young age. You preached your first sermon at 17. Yep. You knew that, hey, everybody gets saved should be a pastor. That's what you thought when you got saved. But what was the impetus to begin this process of multiplication for you? When did that happen?
Really, for me, it happened when I wouldn't have used this language. I wouldn't have said multiplication back then. But when I got saved as a teenager, I just wanted all my friends to come to church, and so I now looking back, I feel like God planted a desire in me. I just wanted a church my friends could come to. And I've said this, I went to a small East Texas Southern Baptist church, probably very similar, even though different countries, but, traditionally similar, that, 150 people, been the same way, forever. They had to have a deacons meeting to change the color of carpet, that kind of stuff. And I just very quickly was like turned off by that. Just like, this is not church. Like, and I don't mean that negative about that church. I'm just saying, like, because like I said, my dad's the chairman of the deacons there now. They do a lot of great missional stuff now. But at the time, it just was like, aren't we supposed to be reaching lost people? Then this is what we're doing. And so we had a large youth group on Wednesday nights, like 100 and 100 to 150 students would be coming on a Wednesday night of a church of 120 people. So I learned quickly, we can do things on Wednesdays that we can't do on Sundays. So then I was like, well, how do we make a church that can do those things that we did on Wednesdays on Sundays? Mm-hmm. How can we start to push that? So then when I went to school, then I started learning about church planting. And that's when God really put it in my heart. So I was probably early 20s, so a very similar time frame of like, oh, church can be like this. You just have to start one. You just have to plant one. So that's when I was in my early 20s, was like, well, then I'm going to plant a church then. Because I would rather spend my time building something the way I think it could be versus trying to convince a bunch of people for the next 20 years it should be that way.
Mm-hmm. You spoke a lot this morning, Oyvind, at the Church Planting Network meeting that churches have to work together, and that's not been the norm. So I did not grow up in church. I didn't know Jesus till I was 45. So all of a sudden I'm on Team Jesus. And then I start hearing, oh, this church on the corner doesn't work with this church across the street. And this church down the street doesn't work with this church across town. Is that the climate in Europe?
I think, again, Europe is very diverse. So in some nations it's more like that, but in other nations it's really strong, I would say, cooperative effort working together. Like in Norway, we have a very strong unity among kind of, I will say, the Christ-centered, Bible-based, and Spirit-led churches. We work together in every sense.
So when you founded the network called, was it M4?
Yep.
M4, what does that stand for?
So the 4 M's come from the Great Commission. So it's Great Commission church planting. So the first M is the master. I'm giving all power. The church starts with Jesus. He is the one who calls, sends, sustains, builds his church. Everything starts with him. And then go therefore. It's all about mission. And then make disciples, baptizing, teaching them to obey everything I command. It's all about creating a culture where you multiply disciples. And then movement. I with you all the day. God has a bigger plan. He wants to see movement. So we are creating a training around the Great Commission that say master, mission, multiplication, movement. This is what we need to see. God is sending people into his mission to make disciples and to see a movement happen.
And when did you start that?
Well, it was developed in 2010 in Norway, and now it's in 20 nations of Europe.
Wow. Okay. And when did you found Exponential Europe? How did that play out?
So we've started this as a grassroots tool. And there has been around 500 new churches planted now around in European nation. But I saw, if you're going to really see a big change in Europe, we need to start to do a little bit more what we have done in Norway, cooperate together and create platform for cooperation. Not only doing the grassroots, but bring a bigger part of the body together. And then I connected with Exponential and I saw a picture of what could be. Yeah. And that really inspired me. And Dave Ferguson is an amazing, generous, empowering leader that say, come on, Oyvind, let's do it.
Yeah.
So you have in Norway these churches that are working together. They are kingdom minded. But when you take M4 or Exponential Europe into another country that is more siloed, more denominational oriented, how do you get them together?
Yeah, that's a good thing. Good question.
And when you answer that, we're taking it to Cherokee and Pickens counties.
No, it's for me, it's a lot about relationship, but it's also about attitude. Do you believe that? I will say sometimes that the bride of Christ is more important than your own brand. And if you ask the question, people will say, no, the bride of Christ is more important. But so what would that look like then?
Bride over brand.
Bride over brand.
If you're taking notes, that's a good one.
So I think that has been, it's a lot of relationship. It's a lot of vision giving, but it's also finding some right leader that are bold enough to start to convene together. You don't get everybody, but you start someplace. And I think that's what you do in what we have done in many of the nation. You start someplace and you convene together with a kingdom-minded, bigger vision that is far bigger than you can do yourself.
Yeah, I think this brings up some leadership, some interesting leadership things. There's an entrepreneur in you. I can tell that. There's a ministerial side of you. How do they go together? How do they go together, and where does it fall apart with some people? Because your elder said, "Hey, you're not giving us any peace. You're pushing a little hard here." So how does that fuel church planting? Can you be a movement leader without an entrepreneurial spirit?
That's a good question. For me, I just recently I got a language. I met a guy who wrote a book called Apostolic Priorities, and he said, for some people, it's natural to everything had to go into mission. So there is a missional priorities, and the second, everything is is architectural. You see some picture of something, and you draw it out, and this is what you want to build.
Yeah,
and then is reformational priorities. You will never accept status quo. You need to change. And I think that has been full of me. There's always a missional drive, but there is an architectural understanding of reality. I always see things in building something. But then there is always this status quo, never accepted.
Okay.
We need to move things. We need to change things. We need to get things moving. And I think that has been, I just accepted that that's a part of life. That's part of who I am as a leader. At the same time, I have enough pastoral care that's okay for people to be around.
yeah.
What's your least favorite status quo in the church?
That's a good question.
It's not reaching new people. It's not moving out and seeing people come to faith and reaching new people.
Yeah, there was a real cool moment in our network meeting today, and we do this monthly.
Yeah.
And James Griffin, who is one of Pastor Jason's dear friends, pastor in Cartersville, he asked people to stand up if they have planted a church or are going to plant a church in the previous 12 months. And 5 or 6 people stood up.
Yeah.
And he said, the day that doesn't happen, the day where people don't stand up, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So that quashes the status quo a little bit in order to reach new people, whether it's another church down the street or it's another church in a different country. When you gave your statement about your life mission of multiplication, you also said side by side. How do they work together?
I remember back, I was 22 years old. I was standing, I can see the place, and I felt God spoke to me. And he spoke to me from the book of Nehemiah, chapter 3, where to build the new dwelling place of God, they stood side by side. And then I felt just God side by side, men and women, side by side generation, side by side denomination organization, and side by side nation for the expanding of the kingdom. So I defined my life vision. 22 years old, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring people side by side, men and women, generation, denomination organization, and nation for the expanding of the kingdom. I didn't know it was primarily around church planting. And because I felt that multiplication was like 2 Timothy 2:2, train other who can train other, has been everything I need to do. I'm happy when they don't know about me, but I started it, but they don't know I did start it.
Yeah.
Then I'm happy.
Yeah.
Well, I think that opens up 2 questions. What does side by side look like practically? And what does training others who train others look like practically? Let's start with side by side. What does that look like practically?
Yeah, for me, there's many depths to that. I believe the wisdom of God is in the body. The full wisdom of God is in the body. And the body is not one congregation. It's the body of Christ in the city.
Yeah.
To really gain the full wisdom of God, you need to be together. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is when you are one, the people will see and come to faith. There is a power of unity and being side by side for kingdom that has a direct impact. And research show that when you work together, you can have a 300% more growth because of the collaboration releases a power together that you can't do alone. So all of these things, so it's both the understanding of the kingdom, but it's also the power and the growth of the kingdom that is released through starting to work side by side.
That's side by side. Now you've got to train them.
Yeah.
And then you've got to train them to train others.
Yes.
So they train others.
Yeah.
almost like disciples making disciples.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what does that look like practically?
Well, I just very now down to earth in our own. I'm still a pastor in a local church.
Yeah.
So I came back to the church I left. I came back after 15 years. They asked me to go back. But so I lead that church.
That elder was gone by then.
Yeah.
That's true. But
they were ready
but he was my best friend. So I that was the best revelation I've got. And I think that has been one of the biggest things for me. I need honest people around me. I'm so afraid of leaders who don't have people they are transparent to, open, honest. Like I need that. So what it will look like in our church? Well, just started a Bible school with young people. So I have a 25 years old leading the Bible school and investing him. And this year he had 26 younger students, 17 to 22 years old. But at 25 years leads it. So I just pull my strength, my help into the 25 years old who take leadership of a Bible school. So I always try to bring people in, train them, go with them. Same we do with we are planning a new young adult congregation into the center of the city. Same 25 years old leader. The team is between 19 and 22 years old. Empower them, go beside them, give them the opportunity, let them go, but covering. And I think that's raising up leader around you all the time. And that's what I've tried to do on a local, national, and international level.
Pastor Jason, what inspires you about hearing all this and spending time with Oyvind and going to Europe?
Two things. One, and I mentioned this at our network meeting today. The first one to me is anytime that I'm around leaders of other, not just other nations, other cities, but other cities and other nations. The first thing that is so inspiring to me is the realization that God is a global God, like He's working all over the world. And to be honest with you, I think heaven and eternity is just going to be forever us learning about what God did when we were here. Because there's so much that's happening all over the world right now that we don't know. And all we hear is bad news, but I think God is working. I mean, you read the Old Testament in particular, and people are like, God, where are you? And God's like, I got 7,000 people in this city. You don't even know nothing about it. So it's like things like that. So number one, it's inspiring to know. My faith gets built so much to know God saved a 16-year-old in Norway, and I didn't know who he was, but God did. So that's number one. And number two, what's so inspiring is I do think the church, what he's just said, the wisdom is in the body. And so when I said, when I met Oyvind, it felt like we knew each other for a long time. It's because in Christ we did. In Christ we've known each other forever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because he has the same Holy Spirit that I have. And so therefore, what's so inspiring to me and why I want to make sure that I am rubbing shoulders with them is there's so much wisdom in the body of Christ that I don't have yet. And it's not just a generational thing. But I do think there's an international kind of, I think I'm trying to word this in the right way. Oyvind is older than me, not much older, but even if he wasn't older than me, I think he's got wisdom that I don't have because he's had to figure things out in Norway that we haven't had to figure out here yet.
Right.
Because Europe has been ahead of the Western church, or the American church, I should say. They're part of the West. So they experienced secularization in a way that we've begun to over the last few decades, but they've been dealing with it longer. So therefore, they've had to solve problems that it required a different way of thinking that we hadn't had to until like the last 2 decades here. So he has a wisdom that I have, not because he's older, although there's that too, that I need to know. Like Oscar, who we'll do a podcast with, said, actually a guy that works with him named Rich, Rich is in the UK, was telling Oscar, there's some things that you got to know. And if you don't change these things in the next 8 to 10 years, Africa is going to be like Europe. So it's like, in a way, Oyvind lives in the future. Like he's 7 hours ahead of us time zone wise.
Yes.
So he does live in the future, but he also lives in the future of the church in a way that Americans, we haven't experienced yet. So I would be insane to not learn from that, you know, and so for me as the pastor of a local church and leader of a network here, I have to always, in fact, I heard Leon say this one time, you know, as a leader, you have the windshield and you have the rearview mirror, you know. Well, you can't be looking, you always have to be looking at the windshield, you know, looking to the future, not just the rearview mirror. So as a pastor, when I think of the rearview mirror, I don't think of the past. I use the rearview mirror to know who's in the car with me. You know,
That's good.
so I'm looking at the rearview mirror. It's like, how's the people in the car? But as a pastor, if I'm always looking at the rearview mirror, then we're going to wreck.
Right.
I also have to be looking out the windshield to the future. So it's like Oyvind is out there in the future, through the windshield, and then but I can't always be looking in the future. So I got to learn what's out there to help the people in here. If that makes sense.
What were the things that this guy said 8-10 years ago, that if you don't do these things or you keep doing these things, the church will die? What were those things?
Well, I think it's what we learn in Europe is that when you stop really discipling people, stop multiplying your church, disciples, leaders, and churches, there's happening something. You are moving away from the DNA of what to be a church.
Yeah,
and you that's the point. And I think, like in US, someone asked, will US follow Europe? I will say maybe or maybe not. Maybe the church in the US is still so strong that if you move to a place of reproduction, multiplication, discipleship as a core of the church, maybe you don't need to move towards Europe. Maybe God can change something before. And I think that's to put that in the core of the church, understanding of that discipleship and the culture of discipleship and raising up disciples and leaders to reproduce themselves and plant new churches are the core. And in that impact your society. So you're raising up people that really understand that we are in the society to make a kingdom impact. If you do that, I think you don't need to go the path. That's what Rick Robinson say to they're African.
To Oscar. Yeah.
To the listeners of this podcast and to anybody in American church, what would you want them to know is the most important thing about the European church right now?
I think there is a perception that Europe is no more or less dead. The church has decreased for the last 60 years. And it's true that it has decreased. But I sometimes say with the word that, it's getting darker, Romans say, but it's getting lighter. So there are some of the parallel things that you see is getting darker, but in the darkness, the brights start to shine even lighter than before.
Yeah.
And that is what I see. I see that the church now is in a place where, number one, they need each other. Number two, mission is the only way.
Yeah.
And so there are like this, there's still, yes, it's true. But there are signs of a new time. And I think that's where I want to focus.
You've been married how long?
I'm married since 91. That is 35 years, 4 kids, 2 grandkids, 1 coming next week.
Okay. 40 years in ministry.
Yes.
Married 35, 4 kids, grandkids. How have you done this? How have you led movements, started movements, been an entrepreneur, been a church planter? How have you done this with family?
That's a good question. First of all, I say I have had the privilege to know Jesus, but also know his body, because you can't know Jesus without his body. That means there have been people who have known my life all the time and been living close to me. That has been the thing. I have a strong wife She's a farmer lady. She is very strong. And we have stood in unity in every church plant in what we're doing, and that has been. I see too many younger leaders. I just talked with them last week, and that kind of, they are not synchronized in their marriage when they are 30, 32, 3 years. And they do compromise. And they go into ministry, but they are not in unity. And they are kicked out of ministry when they are 40, 45 years old, because it's not, they can't cope it together. I think one of the things for us, we stood in unity and we have gone together, and we have had a rooted place in our own kind of church where we lived. That has been a very, like, we have an extended community around our family all the time. That has been very helpful.
Are any of your kids in ministry?
Well, one have been in ministry. Like, was a CEO of a think tank, Christian think tank, up to recently. She just resigned to do a master.
Well, they're all in ministry.
They are.
We are all in
Yes.
ministry. Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
We got to clarify that.
That's something Pastor Jason says all the time. You're saved, you're in ministry.
Yes,
got
true.
that.
No, I just want to echo what he said there, because I don't think that gets enough publicity, and I wouldn't expect for it to get publicity in the secular sense of, like, so many Americans. And I don't mean this to slam anybody in our church, but we just know what the news says about Europe, and we can see immigration, or we can see maybe our traditional European allies, like, we just think about it from a national level, and there can be this sense of, like, oh, Europe is dead, like you said. And one of the things that you've mentioned, and you mentioned it on here, a lot of European countries do have a state church. In a lot of ways, that church is dead. They have gone more progressive or whatever. But I think a lot of people in the States can be uninformed. Again, not in I don't mean that in a bad way. You just don't know. You know what I mean? That God is at work in a very powerful way. Like, take Iran, for example. We can think of Iran as just a Muslim country, and it is. However, unknown to a lot of people, there is a large growing Christian church in Iran. And we can just think of Iran as a homogeneous thing. And yeah, it's a Muslim majority country, but there is a huge movement of Christ there. So in a similar way, we can think of European countries homogeneously and just think, well, yeah, because you look at the stats, and almost I would say probably every state church is declining in just about in every country.
Absolutely. Yes.
But you may not know, there are leaders like Oyvind all over the place in Europe. And again, through him and through Exponential, I've gotten the opportunity to meet just different people. Like, you take Ukraine, for example, there's a lot of misinformation about what's happening in Ukraine. Like, oh, Ukrainian government's killing Christians. Well, they're not.
Right.
But there's this whole movement, like the Orthodox Church is big in Ukraine historically. But there's a whole evangelical movement within Ukraine that's happening that people don't know about. And our friend Slavik leads that, who's been on this podcast and been to our church, who we partner with, who is training young leaders by the thousands there. But you'll never hear about that. So I just want to echo what you said. God is at work in Europe, and that's why I think it's important for us as leaders to have these kind of relationships, to basically report back to our church about what God is doing there. Because if you just watch the news, you're not going to get any of that.
I gave one glimpse of that. I'm also a part of the board of something called Youth with a Mission. It's a young organization. And the last 18 months, we have organized sending between 4,000 and 5,000 young people from Norway to the ends of the earth, to all the nations of the world. And that's 4,000 and 5,000 on short-term mission trips that we have sent out. It's something.
Yeah, it's huge.
It is. Yeah, something is happening, and there is something. Nation. Yes, that's a big thing. In 25 years, and you're going to still be in ministry. You're still going to be leading movements, starting movements. Yeah. In 25 years, what does spiritual Europe look like in your view?
Can you give me 2 minutes to tell a story for that?
Oh yeah.
So why I'm doing what I'm doing. I felt back, it's nearly 25 years ago, I felt God talk about a story from the book 1 Samuel chapter 14. And in 1 Samuel chapter 14, there is a story where Samuel and his army are in the cave. They are withdrawn, they are afraid, they are irrelevant, they are kind of drawing them back in the caves because the big Philistine army, they are there and they are so afraid of them.
Right.
In that situation, there is a young guy called Jonathan. He's standing up and saying, is this the future?
Yeah.
Is this God's will? Is this where we're going to end?
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, well, if you're few or many, it doesn't matter. If God speak, we're going to do it. And he step out of the cave, go to the forepost on the Philistine, and then he deal with God, and God giving a victory. And the rumor of that victory comes back to the cave. And they understood, wow, God is here. The presence of God is here. God is giving a victory. And then they go out of the cave and start to fight and win one of the biggest victories in the history of Israelitic history. Why do I tell this story? Because I feel for decades, the church in Europe has been put into the caves, into the building. And the whole faith they put into the private space, not official space. So you pull the faith into the private space and the church into their caves. And they have not been engaging into the society and taking responsibility. But in this now, God is raising up a young generation, a Jonathan generation. And we see thousands and hundreds of thousands of young people now, bold, taking the faith into the marketplace, into the schools, and where they are, and bringing the presence of God and the power of God in there. And I believe in 20 years, that youth movement and what's happening will come back to the cave because the traditional church of Europe, the Catholic, the Orthodox, the Lutheran, the Protestants church, there will be a new revived faith back even into the historical church. And we will see a brink of a changed Europe coming back to Christian faith and life.
Yeah.
What a great answer. Excellent. It's
That's what I believe in.
Almost like you were prepared for that question.
I'm preparing for that.
Yes.
I'm living for that.
I love that picture.
We, and you may do this in Norway, we look at things in decades. So Pastor Jason gets saved in his teens. He preaches his first message at 17. In his 20s, he's in vocational ministry for the first time. In your 30s, you took over Revolution Church. In your 40s, I would say you're stepping into this very shepherding, mature season of your life. And I've only been doing this for 10 years. Pastor Jason's been doing it for 27. You've been doing this for 40 years. Over the last decade, what have you learned?
I think I have a quote that is, I could cry, but this is the deepest for me. Grace is the deepest place of rest. It's the place you don't need to perform or pretend or defend anything. So when you come to a place where you work from grace, you work with peace. There's nothing to defend.
Yeah.
There's nothing to perform or pretend or try to do because you are working from the grace God gives you. And you don't work for the results. You work for Him. The deepest desire is to give glory to Him, to please Him. It sounds very spiritual, but reality, that gives a freedom to carry a lot without carrying nothing. And I think then when you grow into maturity and leader, you come to the place that nothing is yours. There's nothing that you own. You're just a servant. And that's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah. That is. We've talked a lot on the podcast. Pastor Jason has mentors. We've talked to them, Lance Witt and Larry Osborne and you and Dave Ferguson. He's also talked about R.C. Sproul having a huge influence on his life and Dallas Willard having a huge influence and Tim Keller. How about you, Oyvind? Who have been those spiritual leaders that have had an influence in your life?
There are someone who say you need fathers, friends and followers.
Mm.
And I have, when you grow, fathers shift because they're coming in some phases of life. You have the fathers, and you see, but then suddenly you see, I need others who can give me perspective from other places. And I have also different, I will say, in leadership or in communication, or different kind of that I'm been drawn towards. But lastly, I will say a guy who has impacted me a lot because of philosophy and theology is Alan Platt, who's leading a Doxa Deo, who led Doxa Deo or City Changer movement from South Africa. So I have a relation with South Africa that has been quite impactful. But I have also local people in Norway that I'm working together with. The leader of Youth with a Mission in Norway, Andreas Nordli, who's been like a friend on mission for a long time. We're learning, and we really want to. We just want to be in kingdom together. So there are both these fathers and friends that ongoing means a lot, and really, I will say, is very helpful. I will say also, Dave Ferguson has been a leader that his attitude, his heart, his way of just like permission giving is tremendous, and he has meant a lot. I've learned a lot. I've read his books. I've been close to him, and he has allowed me to do Exponential in Europe and to see a movement in many nations, and he has meant a lot to me.
Yeah,
you're exciting to be around because of your passion for the gospel.
Thank you.
Have there been moments though where you were like, I'm packing it in. I don't want to do this anymore. As a pastor, you've been pastoring for 40 years.
Yeah, 35 years. I think there has been seasons. And honestly, I sometimes ask, I often say to God, I can't do this. It's your job, not my job. So I need to surrender myself and the ministry and everything to God again and again, because this is too overwhelming. It's too much. I can't do it. And there, when you grow 4 kids, you have 4 teenagers at the same time. You have some challenge in your family, and you think, man, if I can't do this, how can I serve in this way? So you have all this kind of reality of life question that you bring into your life. But luckily, I have people to talk with. We have people as couple to talk with, and I have individual people to process things with. So I never go long with these thoughts alone, because someone knows about it, and I share my life with others. And that's, I will say, my survival of not going alone.
Yeah, Pastor Jason has said many times, not everybody needs to know everything, but somebody needs to know everything.
Yeah.
So that's
everyone
good.
doesn't need to know everything. Yeah, but someone needs to know everything.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what you said earlier was so profound about grace.
Yeah.
And how grace, if you say it's a rest, like resting in who God is. And I think so many of us, we just think of grace as God, God was gracious to me. Like, oh, he blessed me with this thing, or God, he didn't punish me in that way. That was grace. So we tend to think of it like on the more extremes of our life. But day to day, we don't see grace as that sense of what you said of like, no, grace is truly God is with me. God is for me. And therefore, anything I ever do, I'm not doing it by myself alone. And I know for me, and I look back on my 30 years of ministry, where I was probably like you when you were 16, when I was 17, like where I am now, I look back and I can just see the grace of God. How he, again, he did this. And even my relationship with you, your relationship with Dave or Ellen or others, you didn't 30 years ago, you didn't sit back and like strategically lay this out on a napkin.
No.
Though Dave Ferguson has done some stuff on a napkin.
Yes, he has. But I think so many times people in our church, and I've had people say this to me, people look at where we are now and they think, well, I could never do that. I can't do that. And I always try to say to them, neither could I. Like if you could have seen me 30 years ago, if you could have seen where I was, who I was, but this is the grace of God. I didn't know all of this. I couldn't see all this. I couldn't envision all this, but I just knew God was with me. And when God was, and I don't know who did this thought experiment many years ago, but it's like, what would you do if you were convinced God was with you? Like, what would you do if you were just convinced God was with you? Well, then do that. You know, like if you were convinced God was with you.
Wow.
So that's, to me, like the scariest thing I've ever done is leading this church. And I love how what's the phrase you said? Like, I can do everything without carrying anything, or how did you say that? Like, I think that's such a profound point.
Yeah, you used to say the burden is easy.
Yeah.
And you know, that's why I can do a lot without carry anything.
Yes, that's what it was.
And you know, that's kind of, for me, that's the grace. That's just rest in the grace of God.
Yeah.
I don't need to perform or pretend or try to do. I can just serve from the grace God given.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things is that, you know, I have always said I'm gonna love God with all my heart, with all my might, with all my strength, and that is for me doing the most of every opportunity that God opened.
Yeah.
So that's one part. Just doing the best of everything you can from the opportunity that God opened. The second part is that there is a path to go. So I've always had more people that hear more than I hear.
Yeah.
Some will call prophetic people.
Yeah.
but I always consult with someone when decision. I've never taken a decision on my own.
Yeah.
I always consult also with people who listen better than I listen. And then when messages are like they are corresponding, I think, okay, this is the way to go.
Yeah.
And that has been in some cases really strong. I remember back in 2018, I wondered, should I drop the church and go full-time in the ministry? Like in Europe, I could do a lot. But there was 2 people came to me and say, local rooted global impact. Local rooted, I say, okay, God, I hear you. I need to stay local.
Yeah.
So, you know, so there are also
like
a guidance of God in the path that don't miss out of that.
Yes.
Please have people around that pray with you and listen to God with you and don't miss out.
Yeah. Well, and we have not talked about this, but I'm glad you mentioned it because I want to thank you for that. One of my biggest pet peeves, and I do think a lot of younger leaders feel this way still today, is when someone like a church consultant or somebody that's doing something or trying to tell me what to do, you know, the question we always ask them is, where do you go to church? Are you involved in your local church? Are you leading? Yeah. Are you local? Because if a guy or girl is global, but they're not local, I don't want to listen to them.
Amen.
Because it's theoretical now. And you're not having, it's like listening to a person that tells me how to do all this in marriage, but they don't have a wife or they don't have a husband. It's like, well, you're just in theory, man, you know? Yeah. So that's one of the things I've always appreciated about you, Dave, others is, you have a global impact, but it all comes out of your local rootedness. And I think gives you more integrity, more authenticity. I've never told you that, but thank you.
Thank you.
Because I agree with the spirit and what those people told you. You know, like, because again, that is, and I've just gotten to a point now, and I don't know if this is arrogance on my part, but if I'm talking to a guy and we're having these kind of conversations and they're not involved at a local level, it's really hard for me to listen to them. Because it's like, it doesn't mean they don't have good things to say, but their life, I think, lacks an authenticity to it. You know,
Speaking of good things to say, you shared something at our network meeting this morning. You came up and there was this big LED screen and there was all kinds of graphics, but then there was this simple big old Post-it note over in the corner, and you took a marker and you drew a very rudimentary arrow and it was pointing to the right, and then you put some letters next to it, and it was profound. And everybody in the room thought it was profound. Can you describe that without a visual?
Yeah, I can. Because I think everybody can see it. You know, you throw a dart arrow, and you have a dart arrow have 3 parts. You have the arrowhead, you have the middle part, and you have the feather.
Yeah.
So there's 3 parts of it, and I just draw that arrow with the 3 parts, and I said when God pours His Spirit out, He pours His Spirit for all people, and that's a hope. Like we need to be a spiritual church.
Yeah.
But then He said, I pour my Spirit of sons and daughters, and they're gonna speak prophetic. And what I see now, we as a church, we said we're gonna spend 70% of all our resources into the group from 0 to 35 years old. That's because that sons and daughters will always, by definition, be the prophetic generation. So they will go new ways. So the church, we see a lot of church dying because they don't give the faith further to the next generation. They don't focus on the sons and daughters. So if you lose 1 generation, you are dead by 3 generations. So what I felt, and that's from my side-by-side, so side-by-side generation, I believe God is the God of 3 generations. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He works in generation through generation. But as a church, we need always to have a focus on the next generation. But there are a middle part. It says in the Bible that they will have vision. And there are at age 35 to 60 years old, they have vision, they have resources, they have power, and they need to come behind the young generation, the arrowhead, and give it power. But then it's like the older people will have dreams. It's like the feather on the arrow. They have wisdom, they have perspective. So we need the older, the middle generation, and the young generation together as the arrow, because then it gives power. But it will always be the young generation, the prophetic generation, that will reach their own generation, have a breakthrough in their own generation. And today, nearly 50% of the world's population is under 25 years old. And if we believe God will let the next 25 years old, 50% of the world population perish, I don't believe that. I think God is on His way to do a new move. And that generation is now more and more, as a global generation, open to the Word of God.
Yeah.
And as a church, we need to come behind. And we need to link the 3 generations together. Because if you look at the Jesus revolution or Jesus revival in the 70s, is culminated with 1 generation. I believe that what God is doing now is a 3-generation awakening. That He awakened 3 generations and they pull it together, and it will be another power than we have seen before.
Wow. I know that affected you this morning.
Yeah, and what Oyvind's talking about, and you mentioned this in the talk, but I've mentioned this before, but you take the whole Bible, you have Exodus, when Moses was leading the people out, and then he's trying to lead all these tens of thousands of people, and so he's like, I can't do it, and so then God pours out His Spirit on 70, and then they start prophesying, and then some people come to Moses and like, that shouldn't be happening. He's like, are you jealous? Like, I wish God's Spirit was poured out on all people. So you see the beginning of it there, and then there's a prophecy in Joel where he says, this will happen. And that's what he was referencing. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, young men will have visions, old dream dreams. And then you fast forward to the book of Acts, Paul says, this is that prophecy fulfilled. So it started in Moses, prophesied in Joel, fulfilled in Acts, and then the church is born. And so what Oyvind's describing there is this biblical arrow, if you will. And I think for all of us in the room, we're like, we knew that. We knew the prophecy, we knew the fulfillment in Acts, but putting it together in one metaphor like that with an arrow of like the tip of the spear is your sons and daughters, the shaft, if you will, the middle generation, and then the feather at the end. You're like, well, that is what was happening, in the book of Acts. And so really I think for us, it was like we all stopped and like took pictures of his little drawing,
It's not a nice drawing, a nice drawing.
Yeah. Because it put a word picture to verses, to the Bible in a way that was just, powerful. Like, well, okay, well, now you kind of gave us an idea of how to do this. And so like, me, Leonce, and James were talking, all of us are in our 40s. And so it's like, all right, we're that middle generation.
Yep.
And so how do we make sure that we're connecting those two. So that was really kind of the I think the call we all felt. If we're in the middle generation leading churches, like how do we empower our sons and daughters to be the arrow and then connect the older generations?
And I think that's the message to your own church. So that middle generation from 40 to 60, especially when kids are going over home, they think, okay, now we are done.
Yeah.
That's the wrong attitude.
Yes.
Right.
Now you have time
Yes.
to pour yourself into the next generation.
Yes.
Open your house, open your kitchen, open your life.
Yes.
Embrace, because there is wisdom, there's power, there's resources.
Yeah.
To pour into that. So the middle generation, the shaft in the middle, is so important for the power of the next generation.
Yes.
That's good. And that's what I'm encouraging our Jasper campus to step into, because it's a community where a lot of people retire. They move to some of the mountain communities and they think, okay, I've been in church for 40 years. My time is done. But no, you have so much to offer, so much wisdom.
And the young people asking for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because my generation, we didn't think it was cool to be with our parent.
Yeah.
But today, the young people asking for fathers and mother. There's so much disruption. There's so much kind of pain. We see in our meeting, and we have a young adult, 200 young adults gathers, and we have like adult people, 40 to 70, 80 years old in the gathering of young adult. And they are praying for people nonstop for 2 hours, because the young adults love to come to them, to be listened to God for their life, pray, and they are not afraid of opening up because there's a safe space.
Yeah.
Young adult and young people need a safe space.
Yes.
And that generation could provide that safe space if they take it. And their young generation is so ready for connecting in generation. If
So
you just
good.
see it.
So good. What a great conversation. Oyvind, thank you. Thank you so much. If you want a transcript of today's podcast, write everything down we said. Now, I think this is going to go pretty good because some of it is specific to the Norwegian area. But we have a staff that works on this show. Some of the names that you're going to hear are real, and some of them are made up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here we go. Our producer is Brian Damerow. Our video technician is the King, Kian Sadishi.
Who he just met earlier. Yeah.
Our key grip is Jakub Puszczykowski. He is the gentleman from Poland that we want you to meet. Our film director is Marcos
Guardiola.
Now, they're all real.
Those are real.
Our head of doctrine and theology, her name is Theologian. Our chief evangelist is Salvation. Our backsliding prevention officer is lukewarm. Our director of Swedish witnessing, maybe you've met him. I don't know. His name is Bjorn again. Bjorn.
That's my favorite.
Bjorn
my favorite
again.
staff member.
Yeah. Our expert on Russian eschatology is Pitov Hell. Our director of holiness is mortification. Our staff counselor is Les Moody. Our giving coordinator is generosity. The look on Oyvind's face, he has no idea.
He's smiling.
Yeah, he is. Our nativity coordinator is from France. Her name is Beth Lechem. We have two co-pastors of plagues, Manny Locusts and Lance Boyles. Our strategist for the final battle is Armageddon. Our resident prayer warrior is Neil Down. Our executive director of spiritual warfare is Demonic. We have a director of Old Testament covenants. He's been knighted. His name is Sir Comsize. The director of New Testament baptism is Filled the Tub. Here we go. We're getting to the end. Okay, ready? Chief estimator of Old Testament timelines is Ishmael. Our chief Levitical expert is Raul Follower. Our head of biblical ancestry is genealogy. And our Norwegian...
We have a Norwegian now.
Yes. Yeah, our Norwegian co-directors of Living Life on Mission are Hansen and Feetsen. Hansen and Feetsen. There you go. Thank you so much for laughing at the last 3 minutes.
Hands and feet.
For hands and feet,
yeah,
yes. Hansen and Feetsen.
It's a privilege to know you and to be here.
Best 2 things you can do.
Best advice we ever heard. Yeah.
Best advice we
You,
ever
you
heard.
confused me there.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm easily.
Best two things we can do is the best advice we ever heard. Trust God and take a nap.
We will see you on
See
the
you
next
next time.
podcast.